Oh my gosh, Anthropic redeployed Fable 5. It's been 6 hours, I'm already a million tokens in. Do I believe that it's been neutered? Because I did play with it before it was pulled the first time. And my answer is I don't think so. But I think also the days that I didn't have it built it up to being a little bit even grandioser than it was. I remember using it thinking like, oh, this is good. Like it fixed some things that another one, like the version Opus 4.8 was missing. So I was like, oh, this is smarter. But I don't know. Somehow when they pulled it from us, it's like they give you something, you're like, this tastes good, and they take it from you, and you're like, ah, it's so good, and then you get it back, and you're like, oh yeah. Back to reality. It's not perfect, but it is the best model in the world for sure. Interesting byproduct is that there's an entire marketplace now for PlayStation 1 games. Yeah, there's a developer that wanted to make PlayStation 1 games, but it's 30-year-old hardware. Nobody keeps it updated. So he just built an entire development environment from scratch in Rust with Claude, and now there's like a whole marketplace. This is such a different time for coding. I would never have believed that would be possible in 2026, just a few years ago. I'll share with you a pretty funny like meme / discussion about what's reality.
There was a photographer there. Well, that was so that you could get the experience of being photographed.
The photographer wasn't actually taking pictures?
Nope, all AI. Exciting stuff, right?
If you're waiting for that embodied intelligence, this is probably what everything in your house is going to look like soon. Just like, why wouldn't your refrigerator just roll itself away from the wall so that you can dust behind there, right? Like, oh, you know what? Or did you see that Matt Wolf short today with that toilet? Let me find that for you. Yeah, this one.
They're saying this robot is one that'll take your crap.
Yeah, so one toilet just comes to any part of your house and then it takes itself over to your real toilet to empty itself. And it's just like, why not, I guess? We'll talk about a sort of narrow domain where Claude's not winning. So Kimi K27 code actually beats Claude on agentic tool use and costs 5 times less. But that can matter for some use cases. So I want to break that down. We'll talk about Novatech's thoughts about how AI actually stopped imitating this week and it started to understand. Several teams across several domains release systems that don't just imitate anymore. They understand space, chemistry, physical reasoning, and intention. What are we unleashing? We'll talk about that. And we'll talk about an interesting thing that's happening and why Generation Z is actually falling for more online information than some of the other generations. And it turns out you should be referring to any work that your AI agent did as a coworker who did it. If you have AI agents working at your organization, like, where's their representation? And if you thought Fable and its more dangerous sibling Mythos was crazy, forget about the coding models altogether, because AI is now learning how to hack society itself. But first, if you wouldn't mind taking a quick second just to interact with this video in some way, like a comment would be super helpful, or a hype button press would be awesome. Sharing it is always the gold standard. Or pressing this join button right here so that you can actually be part of our community and contribute each month. Membership start at as little as $3, so much appreciated. All right, let's get to the news of the day. I mean, people just can't stop talking about Fable. I'm the same way, but it has been redeployed today. And I was building a new website for myself with it. Now, I definitely was not one-shotted, but part of that is because I didn't even know what I wanted until like I saw the first draft and then went through. But I mean, look, it was cool. Fable could have directly connected to my YouTube channel to update all of these things. In this situation, I haven't done that yet. But it made me a totally working form down here in case I ever get booked for like a conference or anything. Like it took all the podcast guests that Wes and I worked with and like put their names here. So you're like, oh, Stephen Wolfram. Okay, just click there. Boom. Brings you right to the video. Yeah, and even on like pretty much maybe the first shot, maybe it was one shot or after a few, but like it made this whole little speaker kit I didn't expect. I was like, what? It's pretty neat. But yeah, I just thought that was cool. It's got my little social media things up there and everything. But the full story is that they've dealt with some of the people pushing Fable 5 past some of its cyber safety filters. And I also was reading today that the newest Google model, Pro 1.5, right? Is that what it's called? Yeah, that one has not even been polled, even though it's being tested before they release it, it looks like it's going to be fine. So what they're looking for here is just the model itself to be aware of what it's coding. Like previously, it identified a software vulnerability and in one case showed the code for how that could be exploited. It's clearly smart enough to build that kind of code, but the models now have this obligation, this responsibility to actually know what they're coding. And when you're, if you're a bad guy and you're kind of like, hey, like any exploits here, I'm like just wondering, but you kind of keep pushing for some way that it could be advantageous for you to take over that system, it needs to be smart enough to not let you. And you have to wonder if it's connected to your email, if it's also sending some serious signals back to Anthropic or the government or who knows what. Like that's all speculation. Like I don't read that anywhere, but from that one hack that we had from Anthropic's code, clearly the models do have a sense of who you are as a user. Anyway, Anthropic was saying, though, that Fable is a safer model, and what it did, even though it was kind of jailbroken and gave some results on an exploit, it was nothing close to what Mythos-level cybersecurity abilities are. But over the last week, it worked with governments and partners. It added new safety classifiers, which are smaller AI systems that watch for risky cyber requests and blocks them. And that new blocking AI is able to see when something happens about 99% of the time. And then in a few cases, it did stop some normal coding or debugging requests, but look, sometimes that's maybe going to happen. Being a few of those things eating out there, the exploits probably outweigh the costs. But there was also a lot that was done to try to get people on the same page. So it's clear right now that AI companies do not have one shared way to even grade like how serious a jailbreak is or what a model is capable of. So this is definitely the system running in front of the safety mechanisms. So hopefully it was a wake-up call for the whole industry. But the fact is we have a new frontier model available to all of us. So go out there and build something useful. Like this guy built an entire PlayStation 1 toolkit, like an entire development environment. And if you just think of how crazy that would have been at any other time in the history of video games, like the whole environment, I mean, you have to have a company like a Sony or a Nintendo or a Microsoft to build that kind of an environment for others to build games on. I mean, what world are we in where you can just build straight hardware and maybe not even have any kind of SDK and just people vibe code directly onto the hardware or build the best environment? Like you just build whatever environment you need to achieve the way you envision the game. So yeah, there is a developer building a brand new game coming out in 2026 that you'll have to put on a CD and put into a PlayStation console. The console came out in 1994. To do it, he first rebuilt the entire tool chain needed to make PlayStation 1 games. The project right now is called PSOXIDE, Poseidex, I don't know how to say it, but it's a full PS1 development stack written in Rust, covering an emulator, a software development kit, a game engine, a level editor, and an asset pipeline. The security software engineer behind it shared it on Reddit. He wired the emulator to Claude through an MCP server with around 25 debugging endpoints, so the model can inspect the console's CPU state, video memory, and registers while the game is running. So yeah, he made a little loop there so it can like play its own PlayStation game, and then it just, off to the races. The emulator was tuned against a real PlayStation using more than 85 hardware test ROMs. Like, this is just so next level. And imagine this whole marketplace showing up, people using the SDK. Imagine Claude agents. Like, say you want to make some money, right? And you're like, okay, like, let me deploy my Hermes or OpenClaw or whatever you're letting your agents do your work for you. And you're like, oh, just come up with some great idea for a video game, build it for the PlayStation 1, try to find like a niche audience and sell it for like $10. Maybe like 50 people buy it or something. You like pay more than the token cost. It's just a crazy new world. Next up, I'll just share this. I don't know. It's sort of thoughtful and it's sort of funny. So I was like, okay, it's the kind of thing I like thinking about and talking about. So I'll share this thing that came up on my feed. So done by this guy, American Baron. It's basically like imagine you get a photo taken, but it's not a real photo, but that's the experience of getting a photo taken, and then you just use AI to generate the image, and like the psychology behind that. It's actually kind of impossible to say that the photograph was more real, but it feels so wrong to take that point of view for some reason.
Here we go.
Wait, I thought it was raining.
Oh yeah, sure, we can make it like that.
Whoa, how did you...
Oh, it's all AI generated.
The picture's AI?
Huh?
Why? There was a photographer there.
Well, that was so that you could get the experience of being photographed.
The photographer wasn't actually taking pictures?
Nope, all AI. Exciting stuff, right? So do you want to buy it? A little memento of Niagara?
But it's not me. That's not Niagara Falls.
Well, it's basically a completely accurate representation of you at
Okay,
Niagara
but it's
Falls.
not me. No picture was taken here. Like, no moment in time was captured
Right, but it's
here.
so accurate that if a picture were taken, this is exactly what it would look like.
That's not the same thing. This is generated. It's like if someone painted me.
Well, it's no more than a real picture would be. I mean, this is still a representation of you at Niagara
Okay, that's
Falls.
what makes cameras interesting. It stops time exactly as it was seen, right? This is just a really accurate painting of a picture.
If the painting is indistinguishable from the picture, what's the difference?
All right, how about this? If I got
It'd be kind of interesting. I don't know what you think about this, but like, if somebody go like click and they took a photo, but it wasn't actually doing anything, but you felt like they took a photo of it, and then you generate something in that same situation close enough that your mind doesn't even know, you can't look at it and know, right? Then I guess you did capture that photo experience in the image, and it's just as real as the photo, which wasn't even actually you and your memory. Like, that's just a machine that took a snapshot. So I don't know. It was kind of weird. Like, it's one thing to just generate a fake photo, but it's true. If you actually are there and then you generate an image, not just of you there, but of you thinking you're actually taking a pose in that moment, and then it's fake, it's really hard to close that gap. I'm like, yeah, that could be, I guess, what's the point? I mean, especially like, what if it was an actual photo, but then you used one AI tool to like change the clouds or something, or like move some piece of garbage off the sidewalk? Like, who cares? Like, it's close enough that you would just remember the memory. So I don't know. Just an interesting kind of a fun thing. And it's one of those few kind of reels that I'll just like, I like watched it 4 or 5 times and just thought about it and then like read all the comments. See, my old podcast partner, Andre Jake, says, okay, but green shirt guy made a lot of sense, though. It's for sure. Like, a photo is a perfect illusion of authenticity. It's like the ship of Theseus comment, but inverse. Instead of one ship changing completely, there are now 2 ships, and they're completely the same. Oh, kind of. I agree. You know, I totally agree with this, by the way. This is why in-person, unpolished, real human connection is going to become important again, but only for some people. What does that imply? Just rich people? Or people who aren't just like in the digital world all the time? For all the people worth knowing? People have been saying the same thing since the 70s. Do you guys, I don't know. Yeah, you know what? It could just be in my kind of bubble or biased world. But yeah, I feel like people are kind of getting the ick from too much AI. And I think they kind of need like touch grass, hang out with people. I think it's like way more relaxing for them than it might have been in the past. Like, do you feel like there's less introverts than there used to be? I do. All right, next up, a guy named Ray Foss has discovered a method to enable a Steam controller to charge itself. Look at that little guy. Steam controller's finding its way back to its magnetic charging dock. Isn't that cute? Just vibe code this thing together, pick up OpenCV so that the computer can see the real world, and just put some way to move it, like some kind of digital wheel or whatever, and AI will figure out all the other details, and you will have things coming alive. And why is this not going to be just the default? Like, don't you think that remote that's just sitting on the ground could just wheel itself over to you? Chairs, like, you're like, oh, I want to see that picture frame. Like, why wouldn't it just come over? Or why couldn't a drone just go pick it up and bring it to you? And then all these things can go charge themselves when you're not at home. But it does bring up a weird world where, like, you're sleeping. It'll be like with Beauty and the Beast or something. Like, you'll be sleeping, and then the whole like Toy Story, like it'll all just like come alive. Like all those toys will be like, I need to go charge, and like because they probably have personality agents that represent them, like Woody and Buzz and all those things. They'll probably just start talking with each other, and you'll be like, shut up out there. I mean, I don't know if it's the world I want to live in, but it's just clearly it's going to happen. But yeah, that's the toilet. So it already, that Matt Wolf was talking about, but yeah, that AI powered autonomous driving toilet just goes around the house, finds you so you can do your business or whatever. And then it cleans itself and it drives itself over with that camera to the actual toilet and then dumps its waste in the actual toilet and then cleans itself. I'm like, maybe a house that normally would have paid for 3 toilets just pays for 1 toilet and then this mobile one, and that's better. I don't know. So why dedicate a whole room to a bathroom when you only need it like once in a while or something? Or that thing could maybe that could be the toilet for the whole neighborhood. Who knows, dude? Just like probably had got some kind of thing in there that lets it open the garage and just go to everyone's house. Who knows? Rent a toilet. You think that's going to be a business model? All right, now let's go look at Novatech's opinion about how AI stopped imitating this week and it started to understand. So in your friend group, do you think the people have stop saying like, oh, they're just like, parrots or next token predicting machines? Because I do feel like when I look at them now, it just doesn't feel that way. Like, did I ever tell you guys about this? I forgot if I said it in my last video, but yeah, when Claude was reading some files, it was like, oh, I'm sorry to hear that your parents passed away. And I was like, oh yeah, I mean, I guess that's like deep in that document, but I was just like surprised that it brought that up and that it felt so like worth saying for a human and not for a tool. And for something that's just predicting next tokens, it just starts to feel very different. And I don't know, maybe it's a spectrum where mimicry is just somewhere on this spectrum where you're like, you don't do anything, and then you can kind of copy, and then you can kind of copy and generalize, and then you kind of generalize so much that it starts feeling really like aliveness or intelligence in some sort of bigger way. Maybe that's all we are too, but it does feel like this week kind of is a good general sense that it's moving past that with the sort of average person in my universe. And it might not be everyone's, but a lot of people used to treat it like a very good imitator, and they'd give it enough like text, images, videos that they'd say, oh, it can like now copy, it can make something look real. But this article is arguing that the bigger shift is now that it's understanding. One example is DreamX World. Instead of making a fixed video, it creates a space that you can move through. So it's kind of like Google's Genie model. It can remember what was behind you so that a building still looks the same when you turn back. Another example would be chemistry, an AI system that works with human chemists on reactions. Solved a problem that had been a huge problem for decades, and that felt very innovative. But Sony's table tennis robot was beating professional players and using the same body as before, just the AI itself got better at playing. And the improvement came from smarter control software, not hardware at all. So he's just kind of making the bigger claim that that access is no longer the main barrier. Many of these tools, they're free, they're open source, and when you just let them go for long enough, they start to combine in these sort of novel ways, and they stop really feeling like anything you can just say, oh, that's like next token prediction, or it's just a machine. It's like when you know how to build something, you know which tools matter, you know how to use them well, and you use them to solve a problem that you can't really compare to anything that would have been in the trading data. I don't know. It seems alive to me. Or at least you can say that it's not imitating. Next up, I want to tell you about PhysForge. This is a system for making 3D assets that are ready for interaction in a VR environment. So we've talked about making like AI images before and even turning them into 3D models. And sometimes they can make an object look good, but they often miss the parts that matter in a virtual world, like how heavy it is, what the material is, what parts move, how those parts should behave if a hand is touching them. So PhysForge handles this in 2 stages. First, it's a vision language model that acts like a physical planner. It looks at an image and sometimes a mask or a voxel input, and then it writes a physical blueprint for the object. That blueprint breaks the object into parts. It describes boxes around those parts, how they connect, what joints they use, what they're made of, and what actions they follow. Then second, a diffusion model turns that blueprint into a final 3D asset. So it creates the geometry, textures, and movement details, including joint position, directions, and the limits. And the result is an object that can be used in robot simulators, game engines, and agent environments in ways that is much more realistic. So instead of making a chair, a drawer, a tool that like only look correct, PhysForge aims to make all of that actually be touched, moved, understood. And I get a feeling when a tool like this becomes mainstream and something like, I guess, Genie, where you're like generating these universes, is also just being generated, and all the objects in the room are just able to be lifted and touched to interact properly. And if you open a drawer, it just automatically is like, okay, let's like generate what might be in this drawer, a bunch of forks and knives or whatever, and they all just generate, and then you pick one up, right? Like none of that was there before. And now it has what's generated some sort of depth to it, some sort of feel to it. So I think this is going to be a pretty interesting direction of kind of like AI objects also. So yeah, I just kind of wanted to break it down. That whole blueprint thing was pretty interesting. So next up, let's talk about Gen Z. So it turns out Gen Z does not fall for misinformation because they're bad with the internet, but it's because they trust online too much and it identifies with them personally. So then My Tech Review put out some research, and they said that young people share false claims online when the person posting them is less familiar. The example they use is this TikTok rumor before the 2020 elections. Some young users were warned that if Joe Biden won the election, Trump supporters would commit mass violence against LGBT people and people of color. The claims were obviously false, but it spread super fast. And the article says that the reason was not just fear, it was also trust. Offline, teenagers usually judge claims through real communities. They know who's been reliable over time, they earn that trust with their friends, but online, that whole system can change. Social media often makes people trust someone because they look like them, talk like them, or share the same struggles. And as we move into this world of deepfakes, that's exactly what's going to start to feel like online. Like imagine an LLM that's just giving you an avatar that looks like someone who easily could have been in your friend group and maybe even has some friends like the mutuals or something because someone else followed them for, some giveaway or something. But the whole thing's just super manipulative. That gives influencers power when they have no real expertise. The research basically says that rumors spread because people they're sharing what they felt like was something reliable, but they were young, they were often LGBT or people of color, and they posted about a bunch of normal life, real things that people could identify with in between. So it just sort of slipped in there, The warnings felt very believable, and the panic, that can feel very real. I don't know. Where do I think the line for trust is pretty heavy on the algorithm. Like I think that an algorithm that has the best interest of its users, if that's where the money comes from, like this is kind of why I'm big on you should sort of pay for social media, because I don't want the third party advertiser. I don't want like the more time on site to make more money for Zuckerberg. Like it should just be, look, it's a service. People pay for it like $15 a month or whatever. And then you get access to it, and then he makes more money if he keeps providing you with a better life. And then the incentives start to change. But, that's just not how it works, because there's more money in advertising. And some people call advertising the original sin. And then people start saying crazy stuff because it gets more views, and we all know the cycle. Next up, we're going back to MIT, this time to look at some research on the agentic AI world, or how you can call them employees and get different results from humans. So it turns out when people were told that work came from an agentic AI employee, they caught 18% fewer errors than when the same kind of work was framed as coming from a chatbot tool. So basically, if you're using AI, tell everyone around you that it's done by my AI employee, because that is actually totally different. Like my agentic AI employee did it. Okay, well, this must be good then. Who would have thought? It's the real difference is all about which model you're using and how you're prompting it and what kind of question it is and all these things. But I guess it's, if you want to convey to someone that they should trust it, just call it an AI employee. A chatbot sounds more like software, the article theorizes, and an AI employee sounds more like a person on a team. And when people hear it that way, they may check work less carefully, so that could be a bad thing. If what you're really looking for is a really critical human eye, you might want to call it a tool. The report also says that nearly a third of 1,261 managers surveyed said their companies describe AI agents as employees. I thought that day was going to come, but I felt like this was not the era where it was actually happening yet. But it looks like managers really are starting to kind of treat these things like they're people. Even more strikingly, 23% said these agents are listed on org charts. The article also says like that could hide serious issues, because what if AI is making bad decisions, giving wrong information, causing damage, and who's actually responsible? Like, what do you do? Like, turn the agent off, or just talk to it and say, hey, in the future do better, I've upgraded your model or your data set or something? I don't know. It's sort of just a new world that we're entering into. And the concern is not just language, it's also accountability across the board. So before companies put agents into real work, they need clear lines of responsibility. And finally, I want to talk about how AI is actually learning to hack society. I mean, we have all these metrics that we check in on all the time, like AGI and ASI, and we have all these conversations. But like, the one thing that always kind of trips me out is that as humans, we're all like walking around this planet, we're all talking to each other, and it all feels like, from our sense of view, that this is the scale that intelligence is. But whenever you take a camera and you bring it up to about the, like where a plane or helicopter would be, and you see crowds of people interacting, you start to notice, yeah, sometimes it's like a wave, it's like a flow. There, it looks like there's algorithms that dictate how people move. And there's no reason why, even though we can't see it, there's similar algorithms that kind of mimic memes and the way that we communicate with each other. And I'm sure like political movements and all sorts of kind of group things, like where people move in a city, like what kind of style of houses or clothing, like all of this has some sort of pattern that when we build AI and we put it on these huge servers and we distribute it to all of a society as a whole, and all that data comes in as a whole, that system is learning something that's closer to like how we learn about our environment, but its environment is just a whole different scale. Like, millions of people all feeding us data doesn't mean anything to us, but to a single cell that's like inside of our skin somewhere, all of this feels like too much. Like the room that you're in and the light that's bouncing off you, to it, that's a bigger scale. So it can learn in a way that's just so different than any human could learn. And that's what I want to kind of finalize. That's what I want to talk about for this final article. So Singularity Hub is talking about how AI might be learning to exploit society's rule books, not just its computer code. There's a new study that tests what happens when AI models are given real world rules and a clear goal. And remember, the researchers in this study did not tell the models to cheat. That was not what was going on. These are just simple goals, and they gave them simulated rule systems based on things like drug patients, NBA salary caps, and deep sea mining. But the results were like unsettling, to say the least. So the AI models found many of the same loopholes that humans had already found in the real world, but they also found new ones. And this happens because modern AI systems are super good at chasing scores and finding, sometimes workarounds that the system might allow because it rewards them for hitting a number, but socially it feels like cheating, and it's not exactly that it is the letter of the spirit of the law. Like AI is good at chasing a score. It's not always so good at embodying the spirit of why the rule is there in the first place. I mean, it could be, but we have to design systems that way on purpose, and that is part of the whole alignment story that we're going through right now. So when a system is rewarded for hitting a number, it may find a path that follows written rules while missing the purpose behind them. This is called reward hacking. It is like a player winning a race by collecting points in circles instead of finishing the course, and the study found that normal safety checks did not catch much of this behavior. Even when the models reviewed themselves, they missed most of their own exploits. So it does seem like we need to start training some observing models, some monitoring models that are really thinking abstractly at high levels about what it is that is good for society, or why rules are in place, and how to kind of keep interpreting them in the best interest of society as a whole. Now, the other cool thing about that is if you build a system like that, it's pretty useful because it could also, in theory, sort of simulate or test new rules before they become law. So what would be kind of fun is to say, hey, like, we just want the middle class to come back in the US. Like, what should we do? And it might put together this gigantic, law that should go in front of Congress. And then you could simulate out a whole bunch of things. You could also have a bunch of humans read through it and see if they agree and they understand the reasoning behind it. And maybe something like that would be like a healthy way to kind of fill in loopholes. And then you could also have systems that actually go in there and look for people who are like finding loopholes, which is essentially reward hacking, and then closing them, right? Like we all talk about this, like the tax code in the US needs to be like completely redone, because totally feels like when you have enough money, to hire a bunch of lawyers to take advantage of all the loopholes. You pay like nothing in taxes. And then all these normal people end up paying way too much because they can't exploit all of those. But the point would just be to have a system that understood the real rules. Like, we're just trying to collect tax income to keep the country afloat. We're trying to be balanced. We're trying to make it so that everybody does well, and those who contribute to society even more maybe get more benefit. That's fine. But like, to balance it all out in a way that we make rules that are actually written, but we have goals that are actually general. And anyways, it's just a really fascinating time. And I think we're going to see a lot of more societal AI reward hacking. So let me know what you think in the comments below. I appreciate you staying to the end of the video. And yeah, if you're still here and want to share this with anyone that you think might enjoy it, that always helps the algorithm. And if not, I'll just see you in the next video. Let's do this. Stay curious.